Our shout out tonight to an investigative team at the Tampa Bay Times that got a tip from a children's hospital about a personnel change, crunched a huge download of medical data, and discovered children in a special heart surgery unit were dying at a rate that far exceeded any other hospital in the state. The investigative report, with its own video, was aptly named Heartbroken. At least 11 children dead in one 18-month period. Many others left paralyzed or otherwise harmed. Surgeons actually left a needle inside this girl's heart and never told her parents.
Everyone was telling me it's the best hospital, it's the best place you can be, you're in the best hands in Florida. And we find that there was, in fact, a needle in her chest. And after the surgery was over, when they did the count they have to do to make sure they have all of the utensils and everything, they were missing a needle. So they knew they were missing the needle, but they never said anything to us.
It was that troubling story that the reporters at the Tampa Bay Times say made them certain they were on to something big.
I'm Kathleen McCrory. I'm the Deputy Investigations Editor for the Tampa Bay Times.
And I'm Neil Betty. I am an investigative reporter for the Tampa Bay Times.
The reporters say the initial tip came from someone who worked at the Children's Hospital, which had been taken over by the prestigious Johns Hopkins Medical Center. Its promotional videos boast of a world-class reputation.
They came in and told us that she had truncus arteriosus. They told us we'd be going to Johns Hopkins, all children's.
They just kept telling us that there wasn't a story here for a little while, and that they had self-policed themselves out of their problems, so there was no point in us further investigating or researching what was going on.
But McGrory and Biddy ignored all that and dug deeper into what happened at the hospital's Heart Institute after Hopkins had taken over.
After that happened, there started to be some serious clinical issues in the program, and that meant that children were dying at a much higher rate, and there were far more complications than this program was used to.
It had tripled to about 9 or 10%, and that was the highest rate of any program in Florida that we had seen for the past decade.
And then, using social media as a starting point, the reporters began to hear from families whose children had been at the Heart Institute.
It was incredibly emotional. I mean, the families were devastated when they found out that what happened to them didn't happen in isolation, you know, that there were other families who had experienced the same thing.
No family more devastated than the Escamillas.
The doctor came and he goes, you know, Miss Escamilla, you know, something about, I really hate to tell you, but your daughter just suffered a stroke. I just remember looking at him and I just burst out crying.
The reporters uncovered one heartbreaking case after another.
Yeah, in many ways, these were families who didn't have a voice. And in particular, they didn't have a voice alone, you know, but when they came together, they had much more of a voice.
The full Tampa Bay Times investigative report told a story that some in the hospital had tried to keep quiet.
You know, it was only a few weeks before they made pretty system-wide changes to the hospital. The CEO resigned. We saw 3 vice presidents resign. 2 surgeons left the hospital, 2 heart surgeons. The chairman of surgery stepped down from that post, although he remains at the hospital.
And the new hospital president issued a remarkable apology to the families and the employees who had tried to blow the whistle.
I know personally that many of you courageously spoke out when you had concerns, but were ignored or turned away. That behavior is unacceptable and will not be tolerated going forward. And most importantly, we owe an apology to the families and patients who did not receive the high-quality care that is our promise to all patients. I am deeply sorry for their tragic losses. It is devastating when a child is harmed or a life is lost.
For the 2 reporters, the profuse hospital apology served as a confirmation that they were right to pursue the story in the first place and they say there is still more to do. In a statement to us, the Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital said federal inspectors have now removed the finding of patients being in immediate jeopardy, that all deficiencies have been addressed. So our shout out tonight to Kathleen McGrory and Neil Dibby and the editors at the Tampa Bay Times for taking on one of the country's most prestigious medical institutions and producing the kind of journalism that challenges the established and the powerful. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next week.